You didn't wake up one day and decide to hand over control of your life. It didn't happen like that. It happened slowly, quietly, in moments that didn't feel like decisions at all. Someone needed you to be agreeable. You were. Someone needed you to stay small. You did. Something offered you comfort in exchange for your attention. You accepted. None of it felt like surrender. It felt like living. That's what makes this so difficult to see. Control isn't taken from you dramatically. It works through repetition, through familiarity, through the slow accumulation of small agreements that each seem reasonable on their own, but together form something you never consciously chose. A life that looks like yours, but runs on someone else's terms. And here's the part that cuts deepest. You didn't just allow it. You participated, not out of weakness, but because you were never taught to notice the difference between a choice you made and a choice that was made for you so smoothly that it felt like your own. Think about the last time you felt genuinely free, not happy, not comfortable, not distracted, free. When was that? For most people, the answer requires real effort to find, and that gap between how free you believe you are and how free you actually feel when you stop to look, that gap is where this conversation lives. Epictetus, a man who was literally enslaved for most of his life, said the only true freedom is internal. Not freedom from circumstances, not freedom from other people, freedom from being ruled by things outside your control. And he made a distinction that most people have completely lost. The difference between what is yours and what has simply attached itself to you and begun directing your behavior without your awareness. He called it the dichotomy of control. What is up to you? What is not? Simple in theory, almost impossible in practice. Because the world you live in is designed, deliberately, systematically, with enormous resources, to blur that line, to make external things feel internal, to make borrowed desires feel like your own, to make the cage feel like home. Your attention is worth money, significant money. Entire industries exist for the sole purpose of capturing it, holding it, and converting it into revenue, not for your benefit, for theirs. Every notification is engineered. Every feed is curated by an algorithm that has studied your behavior longer than any therapist ever has, and with one goal: keep you engaged, not informed, not fulfilled, engaged. You open the app without deciding to. You scroll without a destination. You consume content that leaves you feeling slightly worse than before, and you come back the next day. That's not habit, that's architecture. Someone built that. Someone tested it. Someone optimized it specifically for a mind like yours, and at some point you agreed to let it in. Every time you reached for the phone in a moment of discomfort, instead of sitting with the discomfort, you reinforced the agreement. And the quiet became unbearable. And the phone became necessary. And the control shifted from you to the system that learned you better than you know yourself. But this goes deeper than screens. Think about what you want, not what you say you want. What you actually move toward. What you find yourself thinking about at night. Now ask, where did that want come from? Most people can't answer that cleanly, because the wanting arrived so gradually, through watching what others had, through absorbing what success was supposed to look like, through the quiet pressure of a world that rewards certain things and ignores everything else, that it never felt like influence. It felt like you. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this as a warning to himself. Even as emperor, the pull toward performing for an audience was relentless. The desire to be seen a certain way, to measure his worth through external recognition, was something he had to confront every single day. Not because recognition is shameful, but because when it becomes the goal, you stop doing what you believe is right and start doing what will be perceived as right. Those two things are rarely the same, and the distance between them is where you lose yourself without noticing the loss. How many decisions in your life right now are made from genuine internal clarity versus from managing what someone else thinks? The job you stayed in too long. The relationship you didn't leave. The opinion you kept quiet. The path you didn't take because someone whose approval you needed wouldn't have understood it. No one held a weapon. No one issued a command. But the control was real. Epictetus didn't have patience for this. He said, if someone has the power to disturb your peace, you have already given them authority over you that was never theirs to hold. Not because other people don't matter, but because making your internal state dependent on their response to you is a form of slavery you maintain entirely by yourself. They don't even have to do anything. The thought of their judgment is enough. The imagined disapproval, the anticipated reaction, and you reorganize your behavior around a conversation that hasn't even happened. That is control, invisible, voluntary, devastating. And then there are the deeper agreements. The ones you made so long ago, you've forgotten they were agreements at all. The beliefs about what you're capable of, the stories about what kind of person you are, the limits you treat as facts because someone told you they were, and you were young enough or vulnerable enough that you accepted them without question. You're too sensitive. You're not the kind of person who does that. People like us don't end up there. These aren't memories anymore. They're operating instructions, running in the background of every decision, filtering possibilities before you consciously consider them, closing doors before you reach them, making the cage feel like the full size of the world. You don't see the world as it is. You see it through what you were taught to expect. And what you were taught to expect was largely shaped by people who had their own fears, their own limitations, their own unexamined agreements with the world. They passed those to you, not maliciously in most cases, but completely. And you carry them now as if they're yours, as if they describe something real about you rather than something constructed in conditions that no longer exist. The Stoic project, at its core, is not about being cold, not about enduring hardship with a blank face. It is about one thing: knowing what is actually yours, your judgment, your values, your chosen response, and separating that, cleanly, deliberately, from everything the world has layered on top of it and called you. That's the work, not dramatic, not fast. It's the daily practice of asking, is this mine? This reaction, is it mine or is it trained? This desire, did I choose it or was it chosen for me? This fear, does it reflect something real, or does it protect an agreement I never consciously made? And it requires something most people find genuinely uncomfortable. Stillness. Not 5 minutes of breathing before you check your phone. Real stillness. The kind where you sit with yourself long enough to hear what's actually there, underneath the noise, underneath the performance, underneath the version of you that exists for other people's consumption. The retrieval happens in the quiet, in the space between stimulus and response, that narrow gap most people spend their lives collapsing as fast as possible. That space is yours. It always was. But it requires you to stop filling it. You notice the moment before you reach for the phone, not to stop yourself immediately, just to see it. What am I avoiding right now? You hold your wants up before you chase them. Where did this come from? Would I want this if no one could see it? You catch the decisions made from fear of judgment and stop calling them choices when they're responses to invisible pressure. You locate the old agreements running underneath your behavior and ask simply, is this still true? Was it ever? And slowly, the territory that was handed over starts coming back. Epictetus said, no one can hurt you without your consent. Most people read that as resilience, as not letting things bother you. But that's not what he meant. He meant something structural. Every time you let someone's opinion determine your worth, you extended that power. Every time you let a platform determine where your attention goes, you extended that power. Every time you acted from an old belief without questioning whether it still belongs to you, you extended that power. The control was never taken. It was given, in small amounts, over a long time, in moments that felt like nothing. And that means something important. It can be retrieved, not all at once, not without discomfort. But nothing given away through gradual agreement is beyond deliberate reclamation. The question isn't whether you've been controlled. You have. Everyone has. That's not weakness. That's the condition of being human in a world that never stops asking for your compliance. The question is whether you're willing to do the slow, unglamorous work of finding out which parts of your life are actually yours. Most people never ask that, not because they're incapable, but because the answer requires looking at the job, the relationship, the carefully constructed image of yourself, and asking whether any of it would survive if you removed the audience, if no one could see it, if no one could validate it, if the only measure was whether it was true. What would remain? That remainder, whatever survives when the performance stops, that's you. Not the version shaped by approval, not the version built to belong, not the version that learned to stay small so the people around you could stay comfortable. Find that, protect it, with the quiet, steady clarity of someone who knows the difference between what they chose and what they agreed to without realizing it. You are being controlled, not by villains, by the accumulated weight of small agreements made in moments of comfort, fear, or simply inattention. And the first act of reclaiming control is not a dramatic gesture. It's a question, asked quietly, asked honestly, in the stillness you've been avoiding. Is this mine? But here's what that question actually means, if you're willing to follow it all the way. It doesn't just ask about your habits. It doesn't just ask about your phone, your job, your relationships. It asks about the self that has been making decisions this entire time. The one you've trusted, the one you've defended, the one you've called you. If the desires weren't yours, if the fears were installed, if the identity was built from agreements you never consciously made, then the version of you that has been running your life may not be as reliable as you thought. That's not a comfortable place to land, but it's an honest one. And maybe that's where it has to start, not with a question you can answer, with one you can't.